all builders. Welcome to Snowflake's 5-minute Demo Dare, where contestants race against the clock to demo the latest and greatest Snowflake products and features. Our judges will rate the demos based on 3 criteria. How ambitious is the demo? Is the demo useful and replicable? And finally, how engaging and interactive was the demo? Each category is worth 5 points, and demos can rack up to a total of 15 points for a perfect score. And now, your host, developer advocate Felipe Hoffa.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. This is the Demo Dare time. And because these are live demos and we take risks, sometimes things don't work. So I see that we are live on YouTube and somehow we are not live on LinkedIn right now. Oh yes, we are live. People are joining right now on LinkedIn. So let's see how the numbers go up. Anyways, this is the Demo Dare time. We have a contestant. They have 5 minutes to run their demo and they will be judged. We are live, so this is risky. And we are open to your questions, comments, and giving the best to our contestants. So who is our contestant today? Sean Falconer. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to see what demo you have for us today. Remember, you only have 5 minutes and it should be done live. So what are you doing today?
I'm going to show off internal product that we built called VerbaGPT that leverages LLMs. And then and specifically going to show how we're taking advantage of some of Snowflake's latest features in terms of Snowpark containerization to make it super secure.
I love it. So running Skyflow within the Snowpark containers.
Running VerbaGPT within a Snowpark container.
Sorry, VerbaGPT. Yes. So what is Skyflow and what is VerbaGPT?
So Skyflow is a data privacy vault, which essentially it gives you isolation protection and governance over sensitive customer data like customer PII. And then VerbaGPT is a privately run LLM that essentially has been trained on our internal and external documentation to allow us to speed up things like creating certain marketing content or writing documentation and so on.
Beautiful. And you are the head of marketing and you are ready to demonstrate a technical product. How did that happen?
Well, I am a classically trained engineer and was a software engineer for a long time. It's probably a longer story to get into how I ended up in marketing, but I guess in some sense I was a co-founder of a company at one point, and basically by trial by fire as a founder, sometimes you just have to step in the roles to do them because there's nobody else to do this, and that's kind of how I learned marketing. I learned in sort of the mean streets of the real world of trying to make a startup work.
Cool. So you are ready to take this challenge. Now, because we only have 5 minutes and you are going to be judged on how useful this demo is, you're going to be judged on how entertaining your presentation is, and you're going to be judged on how ambitious this presentation is. How much are you attempting to do in 5 minutes? Let us know what are you trying to do in these 5 minutes?
Yeah, so I'm going to show a little bit of essentially the value that VerbaGPT brings to our organization, and then I'm going to focus specifically on what are the steps to get it to run within a Snowpark container. And I'm going to walk through sort of the essentially the code, the configuration that you need to go through in order to set that up to run within a compute pool in a container on Snowflake.
Excellent. And as I'm saying, you're going to be judged. We have 3 awesome judges today, so let me introduce them. Judges, where are you? Todd Rucker, Daniel Myers, and Vino Duraisami. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are. Let's start with Daniel. Daniel, what are you expecting to see today from Sean?
Yeah, I am excited about today's demo. I think, the world of LLMs, is huge potential. And it's a huge problem that, how do we protect this sensitive information? So I'm excited to see. I think it's going to be very relevant. And I'm also really excited to see how you are leveraging Snowpark container services and all of that. So looking forward to it.
Yes, protecting sensitive information is so important. Vino, what are you expecting today?
Yep, I've heard so much about VerbaGPT from Sean before, and also how they use VerbaGPT to create different types of content, right? Like marketing content and PR releases, and also documentation. And each of them have different tones in themselves, right? So I'm curious to see how they've built this and how Snowpark Container Services kind of aided in the whole process to build a large language model like this. Super excited to see what they have to show.
Excellent. Todd, what are you expecting to see today?
Yeah,
Our guest judge today.
glad to be here. I'm excited to see, demystifying LLMs, what they, how easy it is to, or, how difficult it can be. One thing we'll see with customers and prospects, what is an LLM? Can I do an LLM? Do I have the amount of data to train an LLM? And I want to see, break down those barriers and really show how not scary it can be.
Yeah. I love how Todd is working with so many customers that have these questions. So having Sean demonstrate this in only 5 minutes will be awesome. Sean, anything we should know before we start the timer?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to be focusing primarily on the Snowpark container part of it. So hopefully during the Q&A, we can get into some of the more specifics around how the LLM backend training and so forth works, and how some of the inference engine works, and how beyond just using the container services, how we're also going sort of extra mile using Skyflow to protect potential leakage of essentially PII into an LLM.
Excellent. People are live. Claire is saying hi. Karim Balwani is your fan, says go Sean. And Rohan is complaining that we are already 5 minutes over. But don't worry, Rohan. We are starting right now.
All right, so I'm going to demo VerbaGPT. Obviously, this is not VerbaGPT, this is ChatGPT. But what I've done here to kind of show the contrast between these experiences is I've asked ChatGPT to write a press release to announce the launch of Skyflow's Snowflake native app. And of course, ChatGPT is going to come back with some kind of written response. But if you dig into this, it's not really that detailed. It's pretty generic. And it would actually take me more work to probably massage this into something that's useful than just basically writing it from scratch. Now, in contrast, when I put the same prompt in the VerbaGPT, so this is VerbaGPT running Streamlit front end, I get a lot more specific information where it talks about PII detection, encrypted query operations, bulk transformation. And the reason it knows this information is because essentially, not only is it using a foundation model, but we've actually trained it on internal and external documentation, like a PRD, for this particular product launch. So this is way more useful. And we have all these different templates available that we use for helping speed up creation of documentation, marketing, blog posts, and so on. And all of this essentially is really, as a privacy and security company, it's very important that we're doing essentially everything that we can to protect information and make sure that only the right people have access to this. So as part of that, we also are leveraging certain features within Snowflake, like Snowflake's container services, to run this application. So what we're going to take a look at in the rest of this demo in about the next 3.5 minutes is how can you actually get this running within a Snowpark container. So Snowpark Container Services was launched last year at Snowflake Summit. And essentially, it's a way to make it so that you can run pretty much any code that you write directly within the compute environment on Snowflake. So that could be C++ code. It doesn't really matter. And the way that starts is essentially you create a Docker image, and then you publish that image to an image registry and repository within Snowflake. So I've already done that. So we're going to skip that step. And we're just going to go over to essentially Snowsite and take a look at how to get this thing running as a Snowpark container. So I can't run all this code because certain parts of it take a couple of minutes to kind of spin up, and I'll explain those things. But I'm going to point out a couple of really important pieces. So the first thing that's important is that if you're creating a service that you're going to run essentially as a web application within a Snowpark container, you need to create a security integration that enables OAuth. If you don't do this, when you navigate to the URL, it'll actually not work. And this is something that tripped me up a couple of times, and we'll take a look at what that is once we get this thing running. The other thing, the first kind of big step that's important is creating a compute pool. So essentially, a compute pool is a virtual machine that's actually going to host the containers. And you have, min and max nodes, and you can also set an instance family. So here I'm running this on a very small server, but we can create essentially bigger servers. And if you've ever used platform as a service, like a Vercel, or you use Google's App Engine, it's essentially a similar idea where you have a managed service that's in charge of spinning up these different containers and auto scaling it. Here's another one where I'm running essentially a big one. I can go ahead and execute this, and that'll essentially create the compute pool. Oh, we actually got a SQL error there. Well, I haven't set up my permissions, so we'll skip that step. This is the fun part of the live demo. So we can create a much bigger instance family. We can even also run it on a GPU, where if we were training an LLM, we might want to run that on a GPU. So we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the virtual environment. So once that's set up, essentially the next thing, we're just creating a warehouse, database, as well as data schema. So this is all kind of standard Snowflake stuff that has to be configured for this experience. But I mentioned the Docker image. So in order to actually publish the Docker image to Snowflake, you have to create an image repository. So I've already done that, and I pushed essentially the Docker image there. And when you look at the repository here, you can see this repository hosting this repository URL, which is actually the Docker image that I created. And we have our compute pool running as well, which is now active. You see the virtual family active and so forth. So the last thing that we need to do is create the actual service. So when you actually run a container within Snowflake, you can run it as a job. So that could be like, runs once a day, and you train an LLM with it or something like that. But if you're running something like a web application, then you want a long running service. So I'm creating this service, the VerbaGPT front end, on this compute pool with this specification. And this is essentially the Docker image, the warehouse, and the front end. And then we're going to skip really quickly to grab the endpoint here. This is another piece that takes a couple of minutes. But once this is all set up, you can essentially just go to this endpoint, and now we actually have the front.
Ooh. Sean, what happened with the timer there? I love what all you were doing.
Well, I talked a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, by the way, that the timer that we see here sometimes is not in sync with the timer that everyone is saying. But
that's basically to where I wanted to show, essentially,
yes,
to show what are the steps that get this to run within a container and then navigate to it. And it's super simple. Like, it's basically, set up a compute pool, set up a service. There's some permissioning issues that you have to kind of navigate through. But once that's done, you can have a web application essentially running within the computer environment of Snowflake as a managed service, and not have to worry about the scale and everything, and auto scales as you need.
I love it. Yeah, no, I'm going to say you finish on time. I have already one live question which is, have I been saying your name right or wrong this whole time?
What would you say my name was?
Sean?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, okay. I had to take care of that question just in case I was doing it wrong. But now I want to ask our judges, what did you think? Who's going to unmute first? I see Todd unmuted, but Daniel is unmuted too. So let's start with Daniel, since he's done this many times before.
Sean, I thought the demo was highly relevant. I think that it's cool to see how you're leveraging both Streamlit. You really dive deep into how you were able to leverage and set up Snowpark container services. So that I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I thought overall it was good. I would have loved to see just that right before the end of the see some chat in the Snowpark container service, but we ran out of time. But no, it was very good, and I thought very relevant.
Yes. And feel free to ask questions to Shantu, and feel free to add questions on the live comments. We're going to revisit a little bit of this. Todd, what did you think? And what questions do you have for Shan?
Yeah, very, very relevant to the point. I liked how you had a catalog within Streamlit, so you can do different templates. Again, everyone thinks of ChatGPT as, you know, help me get this recipe, help me write a speech, help me write an email, where you're actually giving it a command and then also giving it a template to really fine tune the output.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that we've done using a combination of approaches with, like, essentially, behind the scenes, we're creating a RAG model that is a representation of our internal and external documentation and blog posts and so forth. But then we're using prompts that set essentially the tone, the context values, and so forth to make sure that the produced output is going to match essentially the style guidelines of our company, as well as match the tone of the personas that we're trying to reach out to.
And are you able to share how much data and points you train this on?
I can tag in my second in command here, Manny, to answer the specifics around that. It's not a huge data set though, because we don't have we're not talking about like billions of vectors or anything like that. But Manny, maybe you want to comment on the specifics.
Sean brought support. Welcome to the show, Manny, and thanks for helping Sean develop this demo.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I am the one who created the vast majority of the VerbaGPT code. I may be head of documentation, but yes, I also am an engineer to an extent. So as far as the actual fine tuning of things, it was a fairly small fine tuning that we did, mostly in terms of helping it match our style. The vast majority of the output we get from our templating, from our prompt engineering, and a strategy that I call iterative contextual composition, which effectively means that regardless of the context windows for whichever model we choose to use for a given task, I can throw effectively infinite amounts of context at it, and it will iterate through all of that, creating a working draft between prompts and using that template with instructions to apply the context as it sees fit. So I can throw one document at it, I can throw 100 documents at it, and it will consider all of that when drafting the output.
Vino, what are your thoughts, your questions? And now we have Sean and Manny to ask questions too.
Yeah, I guess for me, it was huge. It's definitely super ambitious because think about it. You have literally everything that you need to fine tune a model or to build a RAG model, all the infrastructure, GPU compute, and like the data and everything within Snowflake. Like we were able to run through it in a couple of minutes. That was super impressive for me, definitely ambitious. And I know we were running up to the timer till the last second, trying to, finish this up. That was, again, impressive too. In terms of the relevance, I feel like this demo in particular kind of hit the nail on all three pillars that we usually judge the demos on. Ambition, well done, super out there, and we got it too. And relevance, of course, everybody today is working with these LLM models, trying to make them as useful in our daily lives, and they hit it pretty, on point on this as well. And yeah, engaging, entertaining, yep, for sure. Like we had a photo finish right there at the 5-minute mark. You tell me. So super impressive for sure. I was a little bit more interested in, trying to understand how did you massage the data itself? Like, where did you get the data from? Was the data already present in Snowflake? How did you do the chunking, or to get the different tones for these different types of templates? Did you use different types of, documents, of course? And how did you deal with each of these? Like, how did you process the data, or how did you get to this data to actually fine tune the model is something I'm excited to learn more about.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So we assemble for our data set, and I'm going to specifically address the vector store that we use for our RAG implementation, retrieval augmented generation, for those who aren't familiar with that. We fetch all of our external facing documentation, but I fetch the source files of it. Most of it's written in Markdown, some of it's in JSON. And I also fetch all of the source content for our blog posts, all of our white papers, essentially everything that is external facing. I fetch along with a few internal documents. I aggregate them all together in a central data store, and then I have a embeddings pipeline that I run. And that varies a little bit how it processes each individual file type, but in short, it rips it apart into as manageable chunks as I can maintain meaningful context with. And that part's really important because the default markdown chunk, I'm going to throw LangChain under the bus for a sec, but the default markdown splitter for LangChain was so aggressive that the chunks of content we would get out of the vector store were effectively meaningless. It was splitting code blocks partway through. It was actively making output worse. So I had to go in and write my own markdown splitter, considering that most of our content is in markdown. That was really important. But now I can go and ask questions and get almost verbatim answers from the documentation because each retrieved chunk maintains meaningful context.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'll add just when Manny started working on this project too, this was like quite some time ago. So a lot of the things that have come out on Snowflake since like the summit with announcements around like Cortex and some of the other features are things that didn't exist when he built a lot of this stuff. So those are areas that we're starting to look at and explore and invest in to make it easier to build some of this stuff. Because I think one of the things that people sometimes underestimate when you're trying to build these RAG model systems is when you try to build something that's to serve like real people, there's a lot of these edge cases like Manny's talking about where the markdown splitter doesn't work out of the box, or it takes a little bit of work to make these work for each of these domains. And that's kind of like where the hard work really is like solving this kind of like, it's like classic engineering problems. It's not the LLM piece, like that stuff works quite well. It's like, how do you get the data into the LLM in a way that's going to work for your specific use case and have the right context and so on.
Well, and one of the things that made life so much easier, and this was really a game changer for me, was actually within Streamlit, the upload file component, because so many people think about RAG as like, great, I have all of these source documents and I'm going to go and create a vector store and then I can query and it knows everything. Well, that's great until your data set doesn't have the document that you want context from. And so being able to dynamically upload files on a session by session basis to augment the default vector store is huge and dramatically changes how we're able to generate content that has both information from our default knowledge base and whatever customizations the users want.
I know you focus this demo on the container side of running all of this in Snowflake, but there seems to be so much more material that we can share.
Yeah, I could have done 2 hours of demos. So, but I had to get it down to like what could make sense in 5 minutes, because there's a lot of cool stuff that we're doing on the Streamlit side as well, and some of the things that's happening sort of under the hoods with the prompts that we could have got into. But
yeah. With that said, I want to give the judges a couple minutes to decide the final score, and we can use those minutes to go back to see the VerbaGPT UI and all that it can do, and answer a couple questions that we have here live. If you're ready to share your screen, Sean,
yeah,
Tim, you can bring it in. Excellent. This is VerbaGPT. So yes, we focus on running it. I love to see a little more
a couple of
that
things that I didn't get a chance to show in the demo. So this is the upload that Manny was talking about. You can also point it to for the purpose of the demo, I took this piece out, but you can also point it to a URL. But here I actually uploaded a file. I didn't have a chance to point it, but this is like a PRD for the Skyflow native app. So that's kind of the feature that Manny was talking about, where it gives whoever's using it a chance to add additional context for new information that didn't exist during the time of building the actual vector database, which is really, really cool. And there's also a chat experience. So we don't have to do it in essentially draft mode. We can just ask questions as well. So I could say like, what is Skyflow? And that'll it runs a little slow. sometimes because it's running locally in this case. But you get this information, and again, this is being pulled. If I ask ChatGPT what is Skyflow, I'm going to get like a lot less of a specific answer. And then under draft, I highlighted this very quickly during the live demo, but there's all these different templates that Manny has crafted in collaboration with other people across marketing for writing blog posts, creating an ICP, social media post, press release, as well as documentation. And maybe he can even comment on some of the ways that he's using these templates on documentation. But for us on the marketing side, we're basically, this is kind of our starting point for creating things like a blog post or social media post. And it's not necessarily that you wouldn't go and do some editing and modification and put your own spin on it, but it's a great way to get started. And for people who are maybe, less confident writers or have writer's block, it really breaks down that barrier to entry and solves the blank page problem.
Exactly. And the blank page problem is really what I created VerbaGPT to solve in the first place, because my writing team is small, and there's a lot that we want to create, but we have known good sources in PRDs, engineering design docs, that sort of thing. And I wanted to take that known good content and help us get drafts out faster. The purpose isn't to create final content. Tech isn't there yet. But if we can get something that approximates a first draft in a few minutes, that's a heck of a lot better than spending a few days on it and interviewing folks and potentially misunderstanding things during interviews. So, Sean, if you could pull up the draft template menu again.
Oops, sorry.
What I'm able to do is take a PRD and an engineering design doc and then say, hey, I want to generate a conceptual overview. I want to generate a how-to guide. I want to generate a use case. I want to generate release notes line item for whatever subject matter I'm discussing right now. And I have, at least for the documentation, shout out to the Good Docs project, who creates incredible templates for use in technical communications. I was able to take those templates, adapt them and the guidance to have not just the structure, but also instruction for each of the different sections in the structure and provide examples of what those look like. So it's essentially one-shot prompting along with instruction and structure, so that we can get consistent results with a structure and style and tone that we want.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
A question from Rohan Sharma. How much did it cost for training compute, if you can give us an estimate?
Again, the actual training for the fine tuning was fairly minimal. It was just for style. The heavy lifting is really in the RAG model the RAG implementation and in the iterative contextual composition strategy that I put together. So as far as numbers, honestly, I apologize. I don't remember the number offhand. It was that low priority for me.
Yeah, it's that these aren't big systems. Like here's a sort of a snapshot of what the RAG model pipeline looks like. And it's our documentation, blogs, white papers, some internal docs. It's not a huge amount of files. You're talking maybe like a few hundred files to build and host this. And then, like Manny said, the fine tuning is pretty minimal.
Cool.
But it's really obviously
yeah.
like powerful what you can do if you're really sort of focused on solving a specific problem.
Yes, and we have a lot of people watching. If they want to reproduce this experience, if they want to use this, what are the next steps for them?
Manny, you want to familiar?
Get familiar with Streamlit. Choose as far as the front end is concerned. That was frankly one of the easiest parts of the whole process. As far as back end tooling is concerned, you need to identify what sort of inference framework you want to use. I'm personally using LangChain, but you need to identify your inference provider. Part of VerbaGPT is I built my own LLM gateway so that I could tap into all sorts of different LLM providers per use case, should I so choose, such as OpenAI, Amazon Bedrock. I So it supports local inference. So just starting with, choose with the inference toolkit, like LangChain, like Microsoft's semantic kernel, because that's really going to dictate what other tools you can use, what other integrations you can use, and how the rest of your framework is going to flow.
Yeah, and this is just a little bit of a sort of high-level overview of what's happening on the inference side. But McManny said we could plug in different models essentially on the LLM.
Nice. And so, as we are wrapping up, and we are going to bring the judges back with the final score, what's your call to action? What would you like people to do next?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to, you have more questions, or you want to connect with myself or Manny to talk about any of this stuff, or I'm always excited to talk, of course, about any technology and especially generative AI. You can find both of us on LinkedIn under our names. There's not that many Manny Silvas or Sean Falconers out there. And then also, if you're interested in some of the things that we're doing at Skyflow, you can check us out at skyflow.com. We're Snowflake partners. We do a lot of work with, we have a lot of joint customers, do a lot of work in collaboration with Snowflake.
Beautiful. And it's also, we should be known that you are a very active member of the Snowflake community. You are a superhero. You've been organizing events. I saw you at the user group in San Mateo. So yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm a head of marketing that can write code, and Manny is a head of documentation that can write code. Pretty much everybody in Skyflow is an engineer, so it doesn't matter what role you have.
That's a fun place to work at. Let me bring back the judges and Daniel with the final score.
Yes.
And before Daniel says the final score, I want to remind everyone that we have an open invitation to anyone that wants to bring us a demo. Send us your 5-minute reel. You get not only the chance to be featured here as you are watching right now, but also we want to have the best demo presenters present live at Summit in San Francisco. And before Daniel says as the final score, let's remind everyone that this is not an Uber ride. We don't give only 5s. We say that 4 is perfect and 5 is for something that we have never seen before. And we're doing that because we want a ranking. So we are grateful to Sean for taking the risk, to Manny for showing up and answering questions and developing this, and to our judges for doing the hard job of judging. So Daniel.
Yes.
The last word.
So so going by category, ambition, we thought it was very ambitious. You were able to show in 5 minutes, is like Vino said, it was a photo finish. Quite a bit in 5 minutes. And the relevance is very, very high. Being able to bring in that custom context or that personalized context with VerbaGPT, very good. And you made it look easy. So like the end experience, being able to provide those different templates, the upload using Streamlit was awesome to see. And your integration with Snowpark Container Services, we really liked that. We thought that was the way that you were engaging the audience and us as the judges was very good. And we also thought that you handled yourself well when there was errors, right? So like you had the SQL error in part of it. So overall, very good. Drum roll, please, for the final score. We together average score 12.1 out of 15. Very good.
Thank you.
That's a very good score.
All my years of failing during live demos has really conditioned me for this moment. So thank you.
That's a great closer. Thank you everyone for tuning in, for your live comments. Sean and Manny might go to the comments now and answer questions that we didn't have time to answer, but this is so much fun to do together. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you next week.
Want to be featured on our show? Submit a video of you successfully completing a functioning demo within 5 minutes. Demos must be technical, original, and showcase existing Snowflake features.